Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to my channel. It's me, True Brilliance, here with the Saturn Through the Houses series, back as promised. So you guys have been asking me for the 411 on Saturn, and I am here to give you guys all of the tea spill on this very mysterious, hard-working, back-breaking planet, okay? So when you first get into astrology, one of the main planets that you learn about is the planet Saturn. And Saturn actually incites a lot of fear in a lot of people, especially when you are just new to astrology. Everybody has a lot of fear around the planet Saturn, right? Because Saturn is known to represent limitations, hardships, blockages, and all of those things that we kind of don't want to deal with. But I have a very intimate relationship with the planet Saturn. I'm a moon in Capricorn, for those of you that do not know. So I have a very intimate relationship with this planet. And over the years, I've come to really work with this planet and actually start to really understand how this planet works. So Saturn is a planet about maturity. And to be all the way honest, the people that have the most problems with Saturn are people that have not fully matured in life, or you haven't exactly set up your structure in life. And that's exactly what Saturn is trying to get us to do. Saturn is trying to get us to structure our lives and get our shit together. So as most of you guys may know, there's something called a Saturn Return, where Saturn returns to its original place that it was when you were born. It's a 28-year cycle. So around age 28, Saturn returns to the original place that it was in your birth chart, and you have your Saturn return. This is a time of grave responsibility. Sometimes the structure of our life starts crumbling down so that we can build a new structure in our lives. So it could be a time of crisis in our life, but it can also be a time of great rewards. Most importantly, it is a time of great maturity for us and tests and trials and tribulations, which is basically what Saturn is about. But what I want to talk to you guys about today is the fact that Saturn is not all bad. It's not all doom and gloom. Saturn is actually helping us. It's just the way that it trains us and the way that it gives us wisdom can sometimes be a little bit harsh, okay? So when looking at your Saturn placement, make sure you look and find what house Saturn is in. So I do believe that the sign that Saturn is placed in is very important, but the house that Saturn is placed in is going to show the area of life that you are going to experience these limitations or perceived limitations in your life, okay? And it's very important to know where your Saturn placement is, because this is the area of life that you may struggle a lot. And some people can feel like they're cursed in this area of life. It's usually an area of life that you feel very insecure about, or you don't feel as confident in this area of life, usually because you've had a lot of setbacks or you've had a lot of things not turn out in your favor in the house that Saturn is in. So the house that Saturn is in can kind of make us feel a little bit insecure about ourselves. And that's why it's so important for you to learn about your Saturn placement and learn, most importantly, what it is that you can do to fix this, okay? And to combat these feelings of insecurity and inadequacy that Saturn can cause. So a few key things to know about your Saturn placement. Saturn rules time, okay? It rules time. So it takes time for Saturn's energy to come into its full fruition. So whatever house that your Saturn is placed in, that is a house that you can be a late bloomer in life, okay? So if you have like Saturn in the 7th house, you may not find a harmonious relationship until you get older in age. If you have Saturn in the 2nd house of finances, you may not get the money that you want or that you feel like you deserve, or your earning power may not really kick in until later in life, okay? If you have Saturn in the 5th house, the house of fun and entertainment, you may not really start to enjoy yourself and kick back and relax and let your inner child out until you get older in age, okay? So from my experience, Saturn doesn't really come into its full maturation until about 40, okay? So wherever I see Saturn in somebody's chart, I usually tell them you can expect for things to start working properly or you to be in your full stride when you get in about your 40s. Now, people don't want to hear this. People do not want to hear this, but I'm always honest with people because a lot of people wonder why things haven't happened for them, the area in the house that Saturn is in. It's because Saturn is there, and Saturn is slow time. It's gradual, it's step by step, it's painstaking. Okay, take it from a Capricorn moon, it's painstaking. So it takes a while for you to learn the lessons and gain the wisdom that Saturn is trying to teach you in that area of life. And usually it's accompanied by a lot of trials and tribulations. Yes, so trying things, them not working out, you having to fall on your ass, and you having to redo it, start all over again, start from scratch, okay? So the house that Saturn is placed in, that may be an area of life that you may feel that you fail a lot, or you just cannot get it right for some reason. It's really like a thorn in your side. But what you are doing is you are gaining mastery in that area of life. You are learning to become the master of that house. So start looking at it in that respect, because once you do achieve success, which is what Saturn's all about, once you do achieve success in the house that Saturn is in, you will be the master of it. You will sit at the top of the mountain. You will be the person that knows everything from A to Z about that house. And then you can actually take your knowledge and teach other people about that house. That's how good that you're going to be at that house. So please do not look at Saturn in a negative light. Don't look at it like you're doomed for the rest of your life. Don't look at it as you're doomed for the rest of your life, because you're not. You are just learning to become the master of that energy, okay? So just look at it in that way. There's always a positive way to look at situations. I try to be optimistic. Sun in the 9th house. I always try to look at the positive instead of the negative of a situation, and that's how I see it. And then also just look at it as you have something to look forward to in life. Your success is yet to come. Few key things about your Saturn placement. It is an area of life that you need to gain maturity, okay? A lot of the decisions that you make in that area or in that house may not be the most mature. It's an area of life that you need to gain maturity in, and that you need to gain wisdom, because you may not know enough about that area of life and you need to gain more understanding about it. You're going to experience blockages in the house that Saturn is placed in, and you're not going to know why. It's going to be an area of life that you're going to continue to try to succeed, but you keep on getting knocked down, and it can be very frustrating in that area of life. But it's usually something that you want really, really, really bad. You're also going to have to do hard work in that area of life. So things are not going to come easy to you in that area of life that Saturn is placed in. You're going to have to work for it, and you're going to have to work hard for it. You may also have to make some sacrifices in the area of life that Saturn is placed in, okay? And when I'm saying area of life, I'm speaking of the house placements, because the house placements represent different areas of life. So just to go over it, the first house represents your individual identity and the self. Second house rules your finances, your possessions, and the things that you own. Third house rules communication in your immediate environment. Fourth house rules the home and the family and your childhood and your deepest emotions, your emotional foundation. Fifth house rules entertainment, fun, hobbies, what you do to enjoy yourself. Sixth house rules your daily routine and your health, how you take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally. Seventh house is your one-to-one relationships and partnerships in marriage. Eighth house is joint finances, soul bonding, deep intimacy, death, rebirth, and transformation. Ninth house is higher learning, higher education, and higher spirituality. 10th house is your overall career and public standing, your public image. 11th house is your groups and organizations, your tribe. And 12th house is the house of your unconscious and your dreams and your ideals and spirituality. So that's an overview of all the houses, okay? So we are going to go ahead and get into the Saturn placement. So now we're going to talk about Saturn in the 4th house. Okay, Saturn in the 4th house. I know so many people with this placement. A lot of my best friends, a lot of people that I'm close with have Saturn in the 4th. Now, of all of the Saturn house placements, Saturn in the 4th is the one I see the most. I see this position all the time, okay? It's the most common. It's one of the hardest houses to have Saturn in. I think it actually may be, I think Saturn in all of the water houses is the hardest. So Saturn in the 4th house is really hard because it deals with our emotional foundation. But what I do find with people that have Saturn in the 4th house is these are very, very strong and resilient people. Everybody that I know that has Saturn in the 4th are very strong people, emotionally very strong, because they kind of have to. So I look at Saturn in the 4th as actually being very similar to having a moon in Capricorn, very similar energy. So Saturn represents those limitations, those blockages, those hardships. So usually people that have Saturn in the 4th had a lot of hardships and blockages with their families or in their childhood. A lot of it had to deal with lack of emotional nurturing. Saturn is like that hardened, harsh energy. And when it's in the 4th house of emotions, nurturance, our inner emotional child, it could be very hard because people that have Saturn in the 4th house could feel like they grew up not getting the proper nurturance that they deserve, because every child deserves proper nurturance. Also, there could have been a lot of hardship within the family. There could have been a lot of turmoil with the family, particularly the mother, since the mother rules the 4th house, and the nurturing. Your mother could have had a lot of hardship and a lot of boundaries on her. And you had to grow up kind of seeing her go through all of these trials and tribulations, and it had a really deep impact on you emotionally. Now, a lot of people that have Saturn in the 4th house, they could be very, very unconscious of their emotions, and they can even be very unconscious about their emotional blockages. Because a lot of the times when you have Saturn in the 4th house, you bury your emotions very, very deep. So it can be kind of dangerous with this position if you are numb to your emotions, or you are numb to what it is that you really feel deep down inside. Because we all have to feel our feelings. That's what helps us process things. That's what helps us heal. So people that have Saturn in the 4th house, I find, need a lot of emotional healing, and sometimes they need like certain therapies so that they can talk about their emotions and get their emotions out, because it's not healthy to hold your emotions in, especially when dealing with the past. So a lot of people that have Saturn in the 4th house can be harboring a lot of old, dead, weighty emotions from the past that they carry around with them that still affects them emotionally in their adult life, but they could be very unconscious or unaware of this. So a lot of the times their emotions, they can just lash out emotionally. From having to hold it back for so long, they can just kind of have emotional blow-ups at times, especially if you have Saturn in a very volatile sign. And then others of you just hold your emotions in all the way and just hold your emotions in all together, okay? Which we know holding your emotions in is not good. Also, having strict parents, okay, can also be something, because Saturn represents parental energy and authority, the authority in our life. Saturn in the 4th house represents the authority figure, okay? So this energy could have been very harsh on you. And sometimes people that have Saturn in the 4th house can kind of be underdeveloped emotionally, because your emotions were held back so much when you were younger. Your emotions weren't able to fully flourish and to fully express themselves. So people that have Saturn in the 4th house, it's very important for you to express your emotions. Do not hold them back. Express them, but try to express them in a healthy way, or try to find some type of way to channel them in some sort of creativity or something like that. 4th house also deals with our intuition. So sometimes people that have Saturn in the 4th house, you may not listen to your intuition as much as you need to. So it's like your feelings and your emotions can be telling you something, it can be telling you to do something, and you don't listen to it, or you cut it off or something of that nature. So you have to really be sure to follow your intuition, because when you have Saturn in the 4th house, if you don't listen to your intuition, Saturn's going to bring consequences to you for not listening to your inner voice, to not listening to your intuition. People that have Saturn in the 4th house can have a lot of blockages with women in general, right? Because the 4th house is Cancer and the 4th house rules women. So you can sometimes feel like you have a hard time connecting emotionally with other women. So you may find that you have a lot of male friends, or you have a lot of people you connect maybe with masculine energy more. You have a hard time connecting with women. If you're a man, sometimes this can manifest as having what they call mommy issues, you know, like having a really hard time connecting to that nurturing energy. So that'd be something that you'll need to work on. What I find with people that have Saturn in the 4th house, you kind of have to parent yourself and become your own parent, and make sure that you give yourself the nurturing that you did not receive growing up. And yes, it can be very unfair, but that's the way it has to be. Now, a lot of people also that have Saturn in the 4th house sometimes have to cut themselves off, because Saturn is about putting up boundaries, cut themselves off from their families, okay? So separate themselves from their family, because a lot of people that have Saturn in the 4th house grew up in toxic families or toxic environment. And for your sanity and for your mental and emotional health, you had to separate yourself from them, which is totally fine, especially if it's a toxic situation. So it's like sometimes you have to separate yourself from your family because it may have been too much of a toxic situation. Specifically with the women that have Saturn in the 4th house, sometimes this can cause fertility issues for you, or you may have a lot of blockages when it comes to having children or getting pregnant. Okay, because the 4th house does rule the womb. So sometimes you can have certain womb trauma or womb healing that you need to go through in order to have a healthy womb again. This is something very important to understand. 4th house also rules our ancestors and, you know, generational curses, generational things that are passed down to us through our bloodline. So you may have certain things that have been passed down to you, certain karma that has been passed down to you that's not even your own, or that you didn't even create, but you're dealing with because of your family and your family bloodline. So it's no joke when I say that this placement can be a very, very heavy placement, but it is your job to work through these things. And again, wherever your Saturn is placed, this is where you can become a master of that house, okay? So I really think that it's actually important for people that have Saturn in the 4th, if you didn't grow up in a healthy environment, to give that to your own children. Or most importantly, to create your own family unit that is healthy. Now, not everybody that has Saturn in the 4th came from a toxic family. It honestly depends upon what else you have in your chart, of course. So for people that grew up, you know, in a healthy home environment, there may not have been any structure in that family unit. You may have grown up with not that much structure. It could be one or two things. Either there wasn't enough structure, or there was too much structure, or it was like a controlled environment. Okay, so it can be one of two extremes. Also, there could be some blockages with the father figure as well, since Saturn represents the father energy. The rules in the family, the structure in the family, and things like that could have been an issue, okay? There could have been too much authority, too much of a control system, or not enough. It may have been lacking in structure, lacking in control, okay? So if you have this placement, make sure you work through your emotions, express your emotions, heal your past, because Saturn's going to keep you stuck in your past until you look at it and until you heal it. So the Saturn return will be a very, very important time for you, people that have Saturn in the 4th, a time that you would really need to work on those things. Okay, so if you have Saturn in the 4th house, put your experience down below to share with the other viewers that have this. Maybe you guys can start a little support group down in the comments. Let me know what you think, and thank you so much for watching.